So in this one, we'll be talking about items, runes, just runes and items in general, like what runes and items are good, how you should view them, and just for the future, like just teaching you like a good way to look at items and runes so that, let's say, one season down the line or two or even 3 seasons, you're able to think for yourself like, oh, what runes should I go? What makes a rune good? When should I change it? And same thing with items. So I think we should start with runes and then we'll go into items. And if anyone ever has any questions, feel free to interrupt and ask. But we'll just start from left to right. We'll start with precision tree. We'll just talk about everything and what I think of everything. So, PTA. PTA is a rune that is really good on champions when you want to one-shot, because it gives good burst. In bot lane, it also has the addition that your teammates will also benefit from the bonus damage. Same if you are a jungler, or if you, for example, are mid laner, maybe you're roaming, right? Because, you see, the proc, they will take increased damage from all sources. From all sources, that's pretty important, because like I said, this means that, for example, for Pantheon support, you could go PTA and your ADC would get more damage too. So, for example, Renekton is a champion that you can adapt your runes on when it comes to PTA versus Conquer. You'd go PTA versus more ranged champs where you are in a short fight and you need to kind of one-shot, whereas Conquer would be better in a longer duel. So that's the idea of PTA. There's some champs that can go PTA that you typically wouldn't think would go PTA. For example, Malphite can go PTA for this reason. Can have very long fights and win some duels because of it. Lethal Tempo, as we are all aware, right, has been changed quite a bit and is a bit of a different rune now. Can be used for early game all-ins, which got a little bit nerfed, but still is not that bad. Still though, the champs that would benefit from PTA would still want to go that. That's why, for example, you never see Renekton go stuff like Lethal Tempo. But it's the only rune out of all of these that helps you with attack speed, so it's your only option on champions like Yone and Yasuo. Pretty much like you could go Fleet to get through a laning phase easier when you're getting poked a lot, but Lethal Tempo is basically just Conquer, but for range champs or auto attackers, pretty much. There's nothing really to it. Fleet has a couple of things that's worth talking about that people don't realize. So people often say that Fleet is a shit rune because it has really bad healing, which is not wrong. Yes, it does not heal much, but that's not the only thing it does, right? It also gives you movement speed. For example, for Kassadin, this is pretty big. When you're playing Kassadin in mid lane, usually you farm with Q, but the times that you do walk up to auto minion, you're gonna get auto-attacked a lot. Having the movement speed from Fleet means you can now run away after auto-attacking, which is going to, again, prevent a lot of damage compared to just not having it, right? So you want Fleet on champions where the movement speed will help, and the sustain is nice, and you don't really have anything else, and you want precision. Now that's another thing that we'll be talking about, is that even sometimes the keystones might not be good, but the runes in the tree might make you want to go it. This sometimes happens with champs that goes First Strike, or champs that goes Spellbook. They happen to just want inspiration for Freeboots, Futures Market, this type of scaling runes. They don't necessarily care about the keystone. So a lot of the times, you just end up having like Fleet because your champion just doesn't use everything else well. That's another thing for Kassadin. You want the tenacity, you want the presence of mind. The Last Stand or Coop are both quite good on Kassadin, so you end up with pretty good precision runes, and then you just go a filler rune. Some games you might go Conquer instead of this though. But yeah, Fleet is nice for the movement speed, but also the sustain. But most of the time, it's just a rune you go because you wanted precision. Conquer is pretty obvious, right? Not much to talk about there. It is just a good rune when it comes to all-in fights, long fights. This one is when like people go this rune way too much. This is basically just like cookies, but for pokers, right? If you're gonna proc this quite a bit, it's kind of nice. If you're playing a champion that relies on resets, it can be nice. So for example, if you're playing Tristana and you think it's a very aggressive lane, you could go this because it can be nice to get the mana refund. Same thing for like Kassadin, you really want this for the mana refund. Whereas for tanks, you tend to just go this because you heal a lot from resets and it can help you reset fights. Same for like Renekton. When you're playing stuff like Graves, where you want to just heal up, go shield bow, you're playing shield bow champions, overheal, obviously valuable. These ones is another one that people use wrong. This one is good when you're not going to be buying sustain items. For example, for ADCs, right? ADCs tend to go this correctly. They would go this on Jinx, whereas on something else like Vayne, where they go shield bow, they go this. That is correct. On bruisers, a lot of the times you just want to go this, even though your lane might be slightly weaker because you're losing attack speed. Having the tenacity is still good. Tenacity is really OP, and we'll get to talk about tenacity later on as well. This is the most OP tenacity you can get in the game, because unflinching requires you to be low, and Merc Threads requires gold. So this rune is very OP. So if you need tenacity in the game, you really want to go this one most of the time at least. Maybe in specific cases you might want to go attack speed or something else. But I would rather have this rune and go Tabis than to have this and be forced to go Mercs. Right? Like let's say I'm playing fucking Renekton, right? And I could go this and go Tabis versus my lane opponent. Or I could go this and then go Mercs. I would much rather go the Tabis route. Last Stand. Very good on champions that tends to get low in a fight, champs that takes a while to kill the enemy, for example Olaf, Tryndamere, stuff like that. Bruiser champs. This one is good on champs that tends to stay healthy or champs that one-shot. For example, Malphite likes this because he just one-shots his target, right? He doesn't go low. Champions like AD carries can like this sometimes, especially because they can use this in lane. But ADC is also like this some games. But yeah, it just depends like how does your champ gets played. Are you going to be low and long fights? This one's going to be good. Are you going to quickly burst? You go this. This one obviously, if enemy has more HP. So that's precision. We move on to domination. Domination, we start talking about sustain. Sustain is the main thing about domination. So let's talk about keystones first. Electrocute, very strong for early game. Scales pretty well, especially on certain champions like Veigar. If you get a lot of AD or a lot of AP, this rune can scale pretty well. But yeah, for early game, your best bet is this or this. And yeah, this is just a burst rune. It's basically PTA, but for spell users. So like champions like Diana can swap to this some games, stuff like that. Predator, obvious, right? Good if you're planning on roaming and running around. Dark Harvest is a bit of a tricky rune. In the higher level you get, the lower this value becomes of this rune, because less stacks and less chance of the stacks resetting in a teamfight mattering. In solo queue, the lower elo you get, the better this rune will be. On certain champions that can proc it easily, it's gonna be better, obviously. An example would be Kha'Zix. I prefer this on Kha'Zix because I believe that once Kha'Zix gets fed, he is really strong. So I would rather have this to make sure I do get fed and that I do one-shot my target than having this and then maybe I will lose out on kills. This rune, very good on champions that just wants to quickly trade. This can swing your matchups a lot. For example, let's say you're playing Tristana versus a mage in mid lane that you can't jump on. For example, like Ahri or Syndra. I prefer this one, to be honest, because then I can at least auto-trade with them and get my bomb buff still, without needing to jump in. In bot lane, this also is sometimes better than PTA on Tristana, because sometimes you just can't jump in on bot lane. So yeah. Now this one is what's interesting. Taste of Blood. This is the best sustain rune in the game if you can reliably proc it and you're not going to take damage yourself. This is because Second Wind, which we'll talk about later, is a lot better when you're taking damage. So, Jinx and Caitlyn is the AD carries in bot lane that can proc this the best. Same with like Ezreal because of their range. But if you're now playing, let's say Caitlyn, and you are against like a double mage bot lane, they will damage you more than you will damage them. So then again, if you want sustain for lane, Second Wind is going to heal you more than. Cheap Shot is good on champions that can reliably proc it on their basic abilities. So, Lissandra in mid lane, for example, can use this quite well. In bot lane, you are not really going to use this as an AD carry. Maybe at certain mages you could, like maybe stuff like Syndra you could do it. But yeah. This is a scaling rune. When you're talking about junglers, this one probably on all junglers will deal more damage in early game, whereas this one will scale, because the reason why this one scales is because the fights will be longer, making you need to use this lethality and magic pen for longer, whereas in early game it's just a quick gank, so having the true damage is nice. So yeah, I would say maybe on champs like Zed, you would want this, just because you're looking to deal a bit more damage later on, and you scale pretty quickly up on him, whereas somebody like Shaco, where you want your ganks to work, you want this. Tanks like Gragas and stuff, you would want this. Like Predator junglers like Skarner, you would want this. Moving on to these ones. If you are planning to play with Ingenious Hunter and you're planning on having your yellow trinket, you should go Ghost Poro always. If you're going to go Sweeper, you should never go Ghost Poro. Then you should go this or this. Let's say you're playing Kiana and you plan on going Sweeper, probably Eyeball. If you're playing in very high elo, probably this one. But if you're going yellow trinket, to be honest, even without this one, I would still go Ghost Poro, unless you're playing in like low elo where you can get a lot of kills. I'd say if you're below D1 and you're playing without Ingenious Hunter, depending on your champ, you can probably go this one, regardless of your trinket. If you have Ingenious Hunter, you should go this one, just because yellow trinket with Ghost Poro will stack the fastest. All of these gives 30 AP, okay, when they're all stacked. Something to realize. Like, there's been so many pro players I've coached that they don't even realize this. So yeah, remember that. All of these gives the same AP. The question is just how fast can I stack them? And how well can I use the added benefits? There is no added benefit to this one. But this one gives you more vision. This one can remove enemy vision and also give you some vision, right? So, yeah. Moving on to these ones. This one used to be OP, because this one used to heal you without having any stacks. And you could heal on like minions and stuff, like a lot early game. Now they remove that. Now you need to start getting some stacks. And that changes the things. So what does sustain mean, right? If I use this rune, let's say I heal 100 in a fight, right? It's a fight, I deal like 2.5k damage, I heal like 100 from Ravenous Hunter when it's fully stacked, something like this. I could have Resolve, and I could have 150 plus HP from Overgrowth and prevent me from getting one-shotted, compared to healing over time. So it's going to be very rare for you to want to go this. You might want to go this because you have Domination as a main tree, but going Domination second to get Ravenous Hunter is so grief and should never be done. Only reason to go Domination second is to go like Taste of Blood and something. That's like something. Or like Ultimate Hunter and something. But Ravenous Hunter is so overused. So it's more of a filler rune, like champs that can't use these other ones. Ingenious Hunter, obviously good with Predator, right? But it's also good on champions that needs their Gale Force to do specific things, like maybe you're playing Halo Blades Tristana, Gale Force can be pretty important for you, so then this could be good. For most supports, this is going to be the one you go, sometimes this one. This one obviously good on roamers, or even like Veigar with Electrocute to get the movement speed. Annie is another one that can use the movement speed really well. This one good on champions that relies on their ulti, such as like Ahri, Rakan, Lissandra, Twisted Fate. Those type of champions uses this one really well. Moving on to sorcery. This one, the main thing we're going to be talking about is how it affects your laning. If it can work. What the fuck? 1 sec. Okay, there we go. So, what we'll be talking about in this one is how is it going to affect your lane? Because sorcery has so many runes that affects lane. So Aerie. Aerie is good on champions that can both proc it reliably, and a nice bonus is for the shield. Right? It's not the main thing, but it's a nice bonus. So like champs like Ori, for example, right? Having the extra Aerie shield is nice. It's a nice little bonus. Champs like Cillian as well, right? But yeah, if you can proc it reliably, and how your champion synergizes with Comet. What people don't realize with Comet is that abilities stacks Comet, okay? Which means turrets from Heimerdinger, every auto attack from Heimer will help you recharge your Comet. That's why you would think Aerie would be good on Heimer, because you could proc it easily, but you go Comet because you get so many Comet procs. When you compare Comet to Aerie, obviously you think, how is the Comet gonna land, right? Obvious case is Malphite, right? He Qs, the Comet is not that easy to dodge. Yes, there's some tricks, like you can move and stuff, and you can try to dodge it, but it's not that, like, reliable all the time. So if you have CC and bonus if you can reset the Comet quickly, like spamming spells, Comet is very good rune. It also outscales Aerie in terms of damage later, and it's AoE. Aerie, much better in early game, especially on champions that has shields. Phase Rush is a rune you go when you don't need these ones for your lane, or you don't care about losing lane a little bit, but you see the value in this one. The value in this one is you make it very unplayable for certain champions. Tryndamere hates playing versus this. Olaf hates playing versus this. These type of champs that relies on slowing you and running you down, they hate when you have Phase Rush. Moving on. This rune is more of a cheesy rune. It's a rune you go when you don't need the other things and you don't really care. Like, Vel'Koz doesn't really go and buys mana items. You could go this just because he doesn't use this, so you could go that on Vel'Koz to prevent getting like one-shotted maybe. That could work, but for the most case, you're gonna go mana full band. This is good on certain champions like Kennen, like Vladimir, champs that needs the extra movement speed to push themselves into the fight. And again, these runes are filler runes. We talked about that, what filler runes means. It's just a rune you go because the other one sucks. Because you have to fill something in. And then you just pick or choose one of these. Because overall, this is going to be the most consistent. Nothing interesting to talk about. Here, Transcendence, worse on bot lane, better on solo lane. Because you need levels, and levels is harder to get. The worst role to go this on is supports, but that doesn't mean it's bad. It's just the worst because you get levels the slowest. We'll compare about them all soon. Celerity is good on champions that can consistently proc it, such as Cillian, Hecarim, Udyr, these type of junglers and champions. It's not that good on champions like Victor. I know there has been some people going it on Victor, but it's not that great because this one gives you a lot of better lane. And this one is just great later on, especially nowadays when you don't buy much CDR on Victor, like you go like Shadowflame Ludens, for example. Having Transcendent CDR is like the only CDR you get, basically. So yeah. But yeah, Vladimir, these type of champs, they use this one. This one is hated a little bit too much, I feel like. Because it's hard to value movement speed, right? Like this one you can obviously see, okay, it reduced my E by 1 second. It's hard to know what this one is doing for you. But it's doing a lot that you don't realize. Like, maybe it gets you an extra cannon minion, right? Maybe it gets you to a fight in time. So if you are playing champs like Hecarim and stuff, it's very good. Now, if you just want to win lane, this is what you're going to look for, okay? This is what's going to consistently win you lane. This is the best for laning when it comes to just winning lane. Absolute Focus is a pretty terrible rune, but it is the only one that's going to help you in lane compared to the other ones. Scorch is overhated. Scorch is not that bad of a rune as people think. All of these runes are shit, in my opinion. Because Scorch gets Giga outscaled by Gathering Storm at like 40 minutes. Sometimes at 30. You just need to ask yourself, what champ am I playing? So, if I'm playing Seraph, and then I'm playing, let's say, Cillian. Actually, let's do Lux. And we're playing mid lane. Can one of you tell me which one of these should go Scorch and why?
Wouldn't Xerath go Scorch? Just because.
Why do you think that?
Pretty much the W and Q would apply. Doesn't it reapply or no?
What do you mean? It has cooldown, Scorch.
Okay. I mean, Xerath has bigger range, no?
Yeah, you can easily apply it. Yep. Yeah, I mean, you're right. Seraph is much better Scorch user than Lux. When we think about Scorch, Comet, Aerie, every rune, every item, we need to think about, like, how easy is it to apply what you're getting, right? It's an important concept, because even though Scorch might sound good on every Pokemage, we gotta think, how likely is it that I hit Lux abilities? How many opportunities in the game will I have to poke, right? Seraph has his Q and W, not that hard to miss, right? Especially W. Lux E, very slow ability, right? Most champs can dodge this, it's quite predictable. Q, you're never hitting. So you only have your E to apply Scorch. Another thing is AP. Gathering Storm gives AP. Lux uses shields. Shields and heals don't get help from Scorch, but they get help from AP. So if you go into Practice Tool and you go with your favorite mid champs that you are thinking, should I go Scorch? Should I go Gathering Storm? You'll find that most mages get more damage from Scorch all the way until 20 minutes. And if you think about an average League of Legends game, they last 20 to 30 minutes, right? So yes, at 30 minutes, Gathering Storm will start becoming better. But it's also not by a lot. In Seraph's case, when you have Scorch, and let's say you get to 10 minutes, when you get 8 AP from Gathering, and you just throw a Q at the guy, Scorch is out damaging by far. By far. Then you go to 20 minutes, and you cast a Q on the guy. You will still out damage with Scorch, by the way. In a lot of cases. And at the point where Gathering is out damaging, it's not even by a lot. When you do a full combo, I think at 20 minutes, it's like 8 extra damage or something with Gathering compared to Scorch. It's not that much. So to me, it's not worth having a much weaker laning phase, because he's one of the best Scorch users in the game. Every 10 seconds you can proc this every time on Seraph. To then have a stronger 30-40 minutes, because at 30-40 minutes, that's when it starts getting stronger. Minute 1 to 19, Scorch is much better. Minute 20 to 29, it's really even, Scorch and Gathering on Seraph. But on shield users like Lux, Scorch is only really better minute 1 to 9. At 10 minutes, Gathering is already starting to become better on Lux, because she is a burst champion. She is not a champion that pokes a lot, and she also uses shields. So much more value on her. Does that make sense? So like Victor is another one that uses Scorch well, because he can proc it every 10 seconds. He doesn't have any shields for his teammates that would help him with AP. He just has raw damage, can proc it very easily. And again, his AP ratios are not so crazy that at 20 minutes he's losing a lot of damage from not having Gathering. Water Walking, obvious case, right? We don't need to really talk about that. That's just if, again, you're not using this and you're just roaming. For example, like Rise, maybe the roaming Cillian style, right? Moving on, we have Resolve. This is the runes right now that are going to give you the most, like, gold in general. I don't know, the site is so laggy right now. 1 second. Let me reload it. I guess I can just go in my client. I'll just go in my client.
In collection.
Yeah. Okay. So the great things about Resolve is it gives you a lot of like gold in the sense of what stats it gives you. So okay. Grasp gives you HP. That's another stat that you have to pay gold for, right? It's a good rune on champions that are like tanky, like Gragas tank, for example. You can just trade, you can do auto E, back off, they can't trade back, you got a little bit of HP, right? It's nice. If you can't stack it, it's not that useful. But it's also, again, a filler rune, because you're not gonna go Guardian on top lane, right? You're also not really gonna go Aftershock, because you're laning. So again, it's more of a filler rune. It's not that crazy, because most champs can't reliably proc it. Moving on. Again, this rune is going to give you gold. It's going to give you another plate. You can reliably proc it on certain champions that tends to get push and prio. Like maybe sometimes Camille can do it, especially because she wants to sideline. Sion, for example. Stuff like that. Again, it's kind of like a filler rune, because you're not going to go this. and this one most champs cannot use. If you can use Shield Bash, you probably should use it. But now we're talking. This is where we talk about gold. It's very rare for a rune to give you gold, but Resolve is full of gold. If you go this rune, it says after 12 minutes you gain 9 or 9 MR, right? You get both of them. But it's not 9, it's 12 by default because of the 5% increase. And then obviously, depending on the champ you're playing, right, you're going to get more. Take Malphite, for example. Malphite on average gets 30 extra armor from his passive because of conditioning. Okay? The conditioning gives him 30 extra armor because of Malphite's passive. 30 extra armor. That's a lot of armor. Right? If we go here, we go to items, we look at cloth armor. See this? 15 armor. So he gets 600 gold just from his passive there because of conditioning. Right? On default, you're getting 300 gold. By default. Because this is like, if you're playing a Bruiser champion with Tabis, you're gonna get 15 armor from conditioning. That's 300 gold. Okay? This one is 25 MR. You're not gonna get 25 MR from conditioning, but you're gonna get half of this. Right? Without having any items. So, you're gonna get 225 gold. So already, you have 525 gold. Just like that. Just spawned in. Now keep in mind, what champs would go this? Junglers, champions that are diving in, like Hecarim, Xin Zhao. What do they build? Sunder, Sterak's, right? Goredrinker, Sterak's. Those type of items. What stat is those items missing? Can you guys tell me?
Resists.
Right, and when is resist most important? When you have 100 of each or when you have 40 of each?
When you have 40 of each.
Yeah. So it gets really awkward, right? Being a Xin Zhao and you have 2.5k HP, but you're sitting there with 50 armor. So, conditioning, super value for those type of champions. You don't need to be a tank to go these runes. Then we go again for more gold. Overgrowth. On average, will give you 120 to 200 HP depending on the champ, the time of the game, how much you were farming, your items, right? Squishy champs, on average, probably 100 to 220 HP from this. That's again, quite a lot of gold. I believe, on top of my head, Ruby Crystal is 150 HP, I think. Yeah, that's 400 gold. So Squishy champ will get 400 gold from this. Sion, for example, can get 800 gold. This is a lot of gold value. So yeah, those runes are really underlooked. Resolve, a lot of gold value. Now, Second Wind, very good rune. Very, very, very good rune. Needs to be nerfed. This is the best sustain rune in the game, as long as you're gonna take damage. Like I mentioned earlier, Taste of Blood is the best rune in the game for sustain, if you're not taking damage and you're dealing damage. Biscuits is on the third place. Only time Biscuits heals you relevant amount of HP is when you are really low. And that's not reliable, right? Bone Plating, only good if enemy's gonna hard commit onto you. Unflinching, obviously, Tenacity. It's the only Tenacity you can get in Resolve. This one is better on Bruisers, because they tend to live for longer, getting more shield rotations, more healing. This is not that great on an AD carry, because on an AD carry I would much rather just live. You could go this if you're like a shield bow champ and you have like an enchanter, then it's not that bad, especially if it's an enchanter that keeps healing and shielding you, like Soraka and Sona. But a lot of times you just don't want to get one-shotted as an ADC, so you'd go these two. Moving into the final one, Inspiration. Another one that we're gonna talk a lot about gold. Glacial Augment, pretty much only used for supports. It is good when you can be proactive in your lane, or you can disengage often in your lane. If you're gonna get poked, you might just want to go Guardian with Second Wind and stuff instead. Like, let's say you're playing like Fresh, right? And you think you're just gonna get poked the entire lane. I don't think this is a good rune then. Moving on. Spellbook, good filler rune. If you want Inspiration as your main tree and you don't really have anything to go, you just go this because it's nice. Maybe you would go this on a champion that you typically wouldn't. If you, for example, need a lot of summoner spells that game, maybe you think you need Cleanse and Exhaust. Right, like let's say they have TF mid and then they have Leona support, but then they also have maybe Zed in the jungle. You might want Spellbook because you can swap to Cleanse and also have Exhaust. First Strike, good if you can apply it in early game. This rune is so overhyped because a lot of people go it. Like, there is a Veigar guy right now, Godzilla or something, or DJ Swagpants, I don't remember which one. Probably, yeah, it was DJ Swagpants. He's going it on Veigar some games. Let me see if he's still doing it. And I discussed it with him, why I think it's terrible. Because he was saying how it's good later, and of course, I mean, obviously, right? Obviously it's good later. I think you will not find a single champion in the game where it's bad later. You can go first strike on Caitlyn, and I'm sure it's going to be good later. But that's not the issue. Gold is less relevant later as well. If Veigar starts getting good gold from first strike at 25 minutes, that's not as relevant as having good gold from the start of the game. If you have good gold from the start of the game, you can change the entire game. Right? Because if you get ahead in early game, then you can get more gold later. Let's say you win lane. Right? And then you get more gold later. So, Victor, Corki, very good users of these, because on average, by the time they start basing, like let's say they base 3 times, right? At 10 minutes. They, on average, probably 150 gold at 10 minutes from this rune. That's on average. Let's assume it's spread out like 40 and then... okay, let's say it's like 35, 55, whatever, and then the rest at the end, like it scales upwards. Having that extra gold in early game can be an extra amp tome, right? And eventually a faster chapter. And then on top of that, it will still scale, obviously, and get more and more and more. So very good on champs that can reliably proc it in early game. It is not that great on champs that is never going to pop it early and only later. So yeah. If you're not going to pop it throughout the entire lane, it is not a very good rune, in my opinion. Unless you have nothing else to go, like I said. Hex Flash, obvious, right? We don't need to talk about. You're not going to go this if you are a mid laner, pretty much. Free boots is good, but can sometimes hurt you, because sometimes you need tier 2 boots rushed. Like, let's say you're playing versus a poker like Seraph, or let's say you need Merc Threads, right? Then this is bad. And then you just go a filler rune, either this or this, because you don't have any options. But yeah. Stopwatch good for supports, because they cannot afford to go the other rune. Like I said, filler runes. This could be good on soul laners if you're playing versus specific things like Yasuo, Diana, maybe Zed, those type of things. This can be good. But for the most part, you always go this unless you need your boots. This one's Biscuits is good if it's going to change the outcome of the lane or let you stay longer and in the end let you achieve more gold. Because again, Inspiration Resolve is pretty much all about gold, right? Like if you need second wind to get through lane, then that means you're going to get gold from second wind because you're staying in lane. Same thing with Biscuit. If I'm playing Zoe, LeBlanc, these type of champs, I really want to stay in lane for every single wave and I want to fight and fight and fight. If enemy has Biscuits and laning runes and I don't, it can be pretty fucking bad. So I just go this on champs like Zoe so that I can secure that I'm not in that position. You know? But if I'm playing scaling champion like Lux or Veigar, the question is just, am I going to get forced out of lane because I don't have Biscuits? You're not. Like, I played Veigar every single matchup versus all the players in the world, and I've never been in a position where I'm like, fuck, I need Biscuits. Unless I've like turbo griefed my lane, and at that point, it doesn't matter. So yeah, Future Market, it's the best scaling one of these. DMATs is good if you have like very often times a point of the matchup where you can't push out on your champ. Maybe like Vladimir, it can happen sometimes, like low wave clear champions. Or if you have good synergy with it, like for example Ahri, you can push and roam with this, or you can one-shot minions with it. That can be useful. But if you don't have specific purpose on this, it can be a pretty useless rune. Moving on. This one, good on certain champs that can run at the enemy, like Ashe uses this very well. Cho'Gath can use it quite well. Yeah. Fres, can you mute your mic? Time of Tonic, best for laning, right? Again, like, Inspiration is just, do you want to win lane or do you want to win the game, right? Like, what's your goal? And there's nothing to argue about here because this is, of course, just the best in lane. just depends, do you need it? How are you going to use the movement speed? Victor uses it quite well, because you can run in, get your Q auto off, TF can stick on the enemy, makes it very good for him. But other champions that tends to have like really long range, like Seraph, does not really use this rune at all. This rune used to be a lot better because it used to boost your potions. Then it was good on pretty much every champion. I used to go to on Veigar back then. But it doesn't do that anymore. This one, again, just a filler rune. If you don't want to use this, you just go this. So those are the runes. So, obviously, if you just want full like scaling, right? Like this would be like your best, like just full scaling. Now for the second tree, this one is gone always pretty much for people, and there are certain champions like LeBlanc that uses this one really well, because they need it to actually get push, and they use the attack speed in their trades, and it's a pain to last hit on those champs, and you don't want to use spells to last hit with on LeBlanc, right? If I use my W to secure a minion, that's really bad, because I can't trade. If I use a Q, I can't use my W because I can't proc the Q. So on those type of champs, this is really good. But on other champions, you can just easily just farm with other spells. Like, for example, Vladimir. You can easily auto-Q the minions. So you'd much rather go this. Veigar, you can auto-Q the minions. Cho'Gath, you one-shot the minions anyways with your Q, right? Like, I'd rather have CDR. Because we talked about this before, how CDR is hard to access because you need to buy certain items. But a lot of the time you want Rabadons, or Void Staff, or Shadow Flame, and these items gives you no CDR. So getting Transcendence basically for free is really insane. So, to summarize, attack speed good if you're going to contest a lot in lane and you need it to get push. Also good if your champion has some kind of synergy with it, like LeBlanc, like you can auto W auto. If not, you just go this. I don't really go this one. I think maybe on Seraph, if you want to win lane really hard, you can go this. Like you can bomb them with Comet, Scorch and this. It can be good. But for the most part, I like this just to go and have CDR in my runes. HP is the best on all champs from level 5 to 7. Depends on how low your armor and stuff is. Like Kassadin and stuff, this one is worse on than compared to a champion that already has really high base stats. Obviously, you need levels for this one to scale. So again, solo laners are going to use this better. For mid lane Veigar, I go HP. If I think the lane is really hard early, I might go MR or armor. But if I think I can live level 1 to 5, I just go this on solo lanes. But in bot lane, I never go HP because levels, again, takes a lot longer to get. So, yeah, obviously it's a lot, right? But that's why I'm recording this and you guys will all get to rewatch it. But that's pretty much it for runes. Those are like everything you need to think about for each rune and how you want to set up your rune pages. Like, let's say I want to be really oppressive, right, in mid lane. But I don't think I need mana. I could go something like this, for example. And this kind of depends on the game, right, and the champ I'm playing. Like, some champs might have synergy with this. But, like, if I just want to be oppressive, this is going to give me the most HP regen. But yet, so many people go like this. Right? But, like I said, second wind can give you a lot of healing sometimes. So it kind of depends on your champ. Like, if you're playing Victor, you're going to run down people with Time Warp, then, you know, this is going to be your most aggressive page that you can go. But then, let's say you're playing Victor versus Malzahar, right? And you're going to win anyways. Then why not just go the scaling route, right? Like, I'm sure I can go and play versus the best Malzahar in the world right now, and I can go scaling like this. I will still win as Victor. Sure, maybe if Malzahar might get 4 or 5 CS more than he would otherwise, but I'm sure we can all agree Malzahar getting 100 extra gold, that's worth me getting these runes, right? This is a lot more CDR and a lot more damage overall later, and more gold. So, that's my idea of runes. That's how I think about runes. Now let's talk about items, unless you guys have some questions about runes. Okay.
Oh, sorry. What do you think about, like, Domination Secondary on someone like Orianna? Because, like, Taste of Blood plus, I don't know, maybe Ingenious for Ludens or something?
Yeah, I mean, that just depends again on what I was talking about. I think Ingenious is complete troll to go for Ludens, by the way. That's so useless, because that rune is not going to do anything for Orianna until you get Ludens. And look at Ludens, Orianna, when you're playing Ludens, right? You're one-shotting, because otherwise you'd go Leandris. So it's useless, no? Like, maybe I get an extra proc of that, but then I'm looking for a scaling rune, right? Like, you're gonna scale with Ingenious Hunter then, so then why couldn't I just go this?
Yeah, that's true. Well, but then it would also be for like Farsight later on.
Okay, I mean, yeah, that's okay. But if
But
I'm
yeah,
playing
yeah,
Ori,
it's
I'm gonna
not-
take damage back, right? Like,
Yeah,
if I want to stay in the lane, I'd rather have second wind then. You know, like if I'm playing versus Seraph and I'm gonna get bombed and I want sustain for whatever reason, then I could just go this.
Right? Yeah, fair enough. Yeah.
But yes, it is true that this works on Ludens and stuff like that. I think that this is more important for tier stacking though, and Sheen, rather than Ludens. Unless you're already going Domination, I wouldn't swap into Domination just so I can get this. Like I said, you can go this if you don't think you're gonna get damage, but I would rather, like, if you think you're not gonna get damaged, so you think Resolve is bad, then you can go something like this, so you can get extra AP from this. Or like I said, if you're playing like Lissandra, maybe you need like your ult more, or Ari, those type of champs. But I wouldn't go into Ingenious just because my Ludens might proc a second time. You know? So for items, we'll start with starting items. You'd think that people don't build starting items wrong, right? You'd think that. Because they've been pretty similar for the release of the game. Like, these items have been in the game pretty much the entire time. And they've stayed relatively the same. Yet people buy them wrong. So, let's start from left again. Cull. Cull is good and bad. Cull is good because once it's completed and you sell it, then you've gotten gold. The issue is you need to complete it and then sell it. And at that point you might not need the gold. I talk a lot about this in my coachings where I talk about gold is good overall, but instant gold is even better. And what I mean by instant gold is, let's say I need 200 gold to get my Berserkers. If I could get that 200 gold just like that, that's really OP. That's why I like Futures Market. Because 180 gold, that's always good, but it might not be useful, right? Maybe I get a kill and then I didn't need that 180 gold, right? That can happen. That is why when I'm playing versus Kassadin, instead of starting Cull, I prefer to do Longsword and refill, because at least I can sell my Longsword whenever I want to get the instant gold back to get a spike, whereas with Cull, I need it stacked. It's been a lot of times where I played, let's say, Orianna versus Kassadin, and I go Cull, and I end up like, I need 8 more CS for my Cull to be stacked, but I'm 200 gold off my Mythic. I don't want to sell my Cull, right? That'd feel bad. But if I had Longsword, I could just sell my Cull. I mean, I could just sell my Longsword. Longsword, look, the sell value. Watch. It costs 350. You lost 105 gold only. That's 2 potions. Longsword also lets you buy refillable potion. If you go Cull, you're going to buy 1 potion, so that's 50 gold. And then you're going to buy refillable potion after. Right? So you're not actually getting that much gold from Cull, as you think. So, Cull start, I am not that big of a fan. It's bad on mages. Longsword is much better on mages. On certain top laners, like Akshan and stuff, it can work. But you also gotta think about your second buy, which we will end up talking about. How, if you go Longsword, you get Vampiric faster. Longsword is a component. Cull is not. Mythic items are more important now. Last season, mythic items wasn't a thing. I mean, well, okay. Last season before that, because now we're in new season. When mythic items wasn't a thing, Cull was a bit better, because your first item wasn't as important on a lot of champs. Now it's kind of important. And Cull doesn't match your mythic item always. So I think Cull should be buffed. I'm not that big a fan of it. Because usually your components are very strong, like Dirk, right? If you start Longsword, you get Dirk at 750. If you start Cull, you get it at 1.1k. If you want Vampiric, right, you have it at 550 compared to 900. So yeah. Dark Seal, good because you get to start refill, so you save gold. Bad because 0 mana and less HP than D-Ring. See, 70 HP, 40 HP. Dark Seal start can be good on champions like Echo because you're not going to win your lane anyways. So you kind of just go it and AFK and just farm, and then you have a better first base because you save some gold. Can work on Kassadin if your matchup is not that bad. But if you're looking to win lane, it's a terrible start. D-Blade, is an item that scales a little bit, because the Omnivamp will let you scale a bit. Makes it very good on champions like Yasuo and Yone and Irelia, for example, because they can use the item really well and heal quite a bit from it. Unironically, mages can heal quite a bit with it as well later on because of the Omnivamp. So now you might be thinking, shouldn't I then go it versus Kassadin? Not really, because Longsword also gives more AD than Cull and this. And you again get the refill, so you're again stronger with that. But that's just like a fun fact. So D-Blade is just good scaling item. D-Shield is gonna be better for early lane. So let's say you're playing top lane, right? Let's say I'm playing Renekton, and I'm gonna be trading a lot. I'm gonna get a lot more HP back from D-Shield than D-Blade. Also, for D-Blade to give you sustain, you need to be able to damage and hit the wave. A lot of the times, especially in top lane, right, you're getting slow pushed into, you can't actually walk up and hit. D-Shield is still gonna passively heal you. D-Blade will not. So D-Blade is more like, can I get away with it, kind of thing. D-Ring, I mean, it's the only item that is gonna deal damage from mages in starting items compared to Darksteel, because Corruption Potion gives very little damage. Main difference is that you have less sustain by not having C-Pot, and C-Pot scales quite well, because on your first base, you will have C-Pot compared to Refill, right? If this guy has D-Ring and Refill, and you have C-Pot and Amp Tome, right? Like this guy has D-Ring, Amp Tome, Refill, and the other guy has C-Pot and Amp Tome, this C-Pot guy will out-sustain. So you have to keep that in mind. So yeah, I like D-Ring if the matchup is more like one-shot or you die, because then you having AP means you can one-shot him better, and the HP helps you prevent getting one-shot. Whereas Corruption Potion I like more when it's like Victor versus Syndra, we're moving around, getting poked all the time, then I think that's good. I don't even fucking know what these items are. I guess it's fucking Twisted Tree Line or some shit, so whatever, fucking ARAM, we don't care. Tear start can be good if you're buying Tear anyways, to start the game with a bit more stacks. I go it on Veigar when my lane is fucking free anyways. So yeah. For supports, it just depends how are you going to play the laning phase. If you think that it's not safe to perma poke, then you should go Relic, because otherwise you don't get gold. And if you think that you can perma poke, then this is going to be good. Like Rakan can go this some games and play for Q poke. And this is much better in early all-ins for melee supports than what this is. Because this one is going to let you, of course, deal auto-attack damage. Moving on, for boots. Mercs, very OP, not for the magic resist. It's the same magic resist as a magic mantle, which is 450 gold. So you don't buy this because they have AP, okay? Please. I see so many people, they buy this because their versus AP. That's not how it works. You buy this because you are against crowd control. Tier 1 boots are pretty fucking useless. Okay? They are not that great. A lot of times you could complete a Dirk or something instead, and that's going to be better. Swiftness is good versus slows, and in general if you need range to reach people. For example, versus champs like Nasus, it can be very good to kite him. Gwen type of champions. Tubbies, similar to Mercs, not good just because they're AD. It's especially good when they are dealing attack damage. Like they are like hitting you a lot. They're auto-attacking you. That's when it's like really good. It is slightly better than this because of them having AD, because every AD champs will auto-attack you, right? So just if they're full AD, it's not bad to go this. It's gonna be fine. Whereas this one is bad to go if you're full AP. Because you could just buy Magic Mantle and then buy like this and you might counter them more. Right? Like if enemy's playing Seraph Sigs, you don't buy this. You just buy this and a Magic Mantle. Sure, it costs more gold, right? That's an argument you can make. If you need the Insta Spike, you might want to go this because you get them cheaper. That is correct. And there will be angles like that. Maybe you don't have item space, for example. But you shouldn't buy it thinking it's good versus AP. Mobius, you're losing the game and you want to open, so then you go this and you run it down mid lane. Or you're roaming the map as Alistar. Otherwise, you should not go this. Sorcerer is only one that deals damage. So if you need damage, you go it. It's good versus squishies to one-tap them. Not that good versus tanks. I would rather have CDR to get more spells off versus tanks. And attack speed boots, right? We don't need to talk about, right? I think we can all understand. how to use them. One sec, I need to send a phone message. Okay, so basic items. The main thing here is what they gonna turn into. You need to realize this, like, some people buy Blasting Wand and then they can't get their Amp Tome. I mean, they can't get their Chapter. That's really bad. By buying 2 Amp Tomes, you secure that you get Chapter. By buying this, you secure that you get Kindle Gem. You get Phage, you get whatever you want. So that's something that's important to think about, whereas when you buy Pickaxe, you are not sure if you get what you actually want later, maybe. So yeah, Longsword, very, very OP component, because you can turn it into everything you want. Vampiric Scepter, Dirk, stuff like that. That's why I'm a big fan of starting items. For example, I had a tech on Heimerdinger in top lane, where I would go Amp Tome and 1 potion with Cut Down. I would do so much damage, and I would guarantee Chapter really quickly. It was really OP. So yeah, nothing else to really talk about there though. Epic items. This one, terrible item. Costs so much. You need so many components to complete it. It feels so awkward. So most of the time as a support, you're just going to buy Kindle Gems. Talking about Kindle Gem, very OP. Very cheap. 200 HP. 10 ability haste. Super cheap. They also stack, I believe. I think they haven't patched that yet. So you can buy 2 and you get 20 ability haste as well. So yeah, this is very OP. This one, pretty shit. They need to have MR for this to actually be better than just buying AP. So, yeah. This one obviously, and this one only should be bought if you actually need it and you need to be the one to apply it. Dirk, pretty fucking OP. One of the only reasons why Collector is even like viable. This one as well, really OP. This one is really piss. If you buy this one or Alternator, you are most of the time griefing, because a lot of time, if you buy this and you're a champ that heals, you could just buy AP for this gold and you would heal more. So this one is not really useful. And this one, the only thing it does is HP. The damage is bad compared to just buying AP. This one is also pretty good. Giant spells as well, just like raw HP. So yeah. Nothing else really to talk about here. Phage, terrible on junglers. Not that bad for laners. This is like only good on specific champs, but it's not that great. Seal is really OP component. Sometimes you would just buy it and just sit on it, just because it's like really cost efficient and it gives you so much stats for pretty cheap. That's pretty much it. Vampiric is also very underrated. Everything else is like really bad. Like this one is really piss. Like I said, this one, it's gonna give you the same HP, but on top of it, ability haste. Right, so yeah, Chapter obviously an OG one, but should only be bought if you need the mana, because again the AP is not cost efficient AP wise. You could buy it needlessly. So now we're talking about the interesting things, legendary items. Let's start with Abyssal Mask. Abyssal Mask is an item you go when enemy is purchasing MR and you are diving in there. Okay, let's say you're playing Malphite. If you want to be tanky, you don't buy this. This item is not going to really make you that tanky. Okay? You buy it if you also want to reduce their damage. Because, reduce their tankiness. Because if you are going to be tanky yourself, you'd rather buy Force of Nature. Okay? So, let's say you're playing Malphite, right? And you have like some AP damage on your team and the enemy has like a lot of MR. This can be pretty good. And Ephemer's quite an OP item. I think this item is really OP, because you get 650 HP, you get 20 ability haste, that's quite a lot. Look at the build path, you're really tanky with this, and it's 2.5k gold only. On top of this, let's say enemy has 1 AP champ, and they have 4 AD champs. Let's say you're playing Malphite, right? Do you want to buy MR just because they have 1 AP? What do you guys think? Like, let's say I'm playing Malphite, right? I have Sunfire, Frozen Heart. Enemy has like Yasuo, Darius, Tristana, and then they have like a Fed Echo. Do I really want to go Force of Nature?
No.
No. I don't get CDR from Force of Nature. Right? and I get more HP from Anathemas. So I can just go Anathemas, put it on the fucking Echo. Now he deals no damage to me, and I still have a lot of HP for the armor guys. So you go this when enemy has some fucking like Chinese piss smurfer on Echo or Kassadin or whatever. You fucking mark them. They can't move. They can't play the game. They're turbo CC'd. If you have CC on your team, like let's say I have Lissandra or Leona, you put this on enemy divers. That guy is gonna be so fucking hard stuck, dude. He can't move anywhere. One of my favorite items right now. It's so fucking good. This item is piss. You only buy it if you need mana. That's it. Like, if you need CDR, you don't upgrade this to Seraphs. It's completely useless. If you need CDR, you buy Cosmic Drive. Okay, I mean, this item is pretty dead because most champs doesn't actually use what it's doing. Like, this magic damage on hit, right? 5 to 20. It's very little, right? So, if you want your Kog'Maw to deal a bit more damage, you could go this. But I would rather want the Kog'Maw to live, so I would go Mikael's or something like that, right? This item is like for funny montages, pretty much. Another pretty terrible item, because it gets popped by everything nowadays, right? Like, the random fucking Ludens coming, a Senna just sniping you from across the map with her Q, right? It's good on specific champions versus specific champs. Like, Evelynn uses this well because it can't really get popped. And it's good counter to Malphite because he can't really pop it. But except for that, you don't really buy this item. Black Cleaver is good. It can also be a good item even sometimes for tanks to buy, just to help their team. Like, let's say Olaf can buy this, even though he's like, let's say he has like 180 item and like full tank after, he can still buy this to help his team get rid of armor from enemy. Overall, it's very good CDR, so champs like Renekton and stuff will use it really well. Moving on, Blade is only good for early game, later on it's terrible. Because once enemy starts getting magic resist and armor over time, this item gets worse and worse and worse. Because it deals bonus physical, but it also deals bonus magic damage. So over time it's going to be very, very little damage compared to other options. So if you're going to buy this item, I recommend rushing it. At best, like at worst, you buy its second item. Anything else is not going to be a very good Blade angle. I don't like this item a lot, because the chance that buys it would benefit more from buying tankier items. Like, let's say you're playing Jax, even though first item Blade is going to deal the most damage, sure, it quickly gets outscaled, and if you misplay just a tiny bit, you're insta-popped and dead. Whereas if you just go Sunder into like Frozen Heart, you live for longer and you will get more damage off overall. Bloodthirster, very good item when enemy relies of poking you out and zoning you. Like, let's say you're playing Aphelios and you're versus like heavy poke, you could have like Gale Force, Rapid Fire, Bloodthirster, and you will have quite a playable game, even though you're outranged. Except for that, obviously, it deals less damage than anything else. Moving on, we just skip these items, right? You guys can understand when to get these. Like, you can get this first item even on support some games. Cosmic Drive, only good CDR item for mages, pretty much. Because Seraphs, the only advantage of Seraph is that it's cheaper. But it gives less CDR. So if you can afford Cosmic Drive and you want CDR, you go Cosmic Drive. 30 ability haste, that's a lot. Deadman's is really nerfed, should never really be bought because it doesn't get you tanky. Frozen Heart is more tankier, and so is Randuin's. So only purpose is movement speed. Certain champs like maybe Set could use this a bit. Maybe Darius, this type of champions. But if you don't struggle getting in range, then you don't buy this. So maybe versus range champs and you need movement speed, you can go this. Death Stance, obviously, right? Good versus physical damage. It is pretty piss without it. And also, Build Path is terrible if they have magic damage. This item is always going to deal a lot of damage over time. The question is, do I want to deal damage over time? Sometimes you just want burst, right? If you go in practice tool and you go on a practice dummy, this item probably on every single champion will end up dealing the most damage most of the time later on in the game. But the issue is just that a lot of time instant damage is better, right? So if you want damage over time, then you go this. On Cho'Gath, you always go this because he has so much HP that you end up getting so much AP that is worth it. This one's same as Banshees. Essence River, good for early game, similar to Blade. It's like the Blade of the Ruined King for AD carriers. Fimbulwinter, good on tanks that wants tear like Gragas. Best magic resist item for tanks right now. Like 2.9k, 2.7k. Let's compare them. 450 HP, 350. So far Abyssal is winning. 30 MR, 70 MR. This one will end up giving you a bit more when it gets stacked, but it's still less than the other one. Gain 7 bonus magic resistance per cursed enemy. Let's say you're cursing 5, right? 7 times 5, that's 35, right? So that's 65 MR once it's fully stacked inside of 5 people, which is unrealistic, right? But let's say that's happening. You're still less than this. So if you need MR, you go Force of Nature nowadays. Also, keep in mind, this also has his own passive that's going to make you even tankier. So it's very OP. Frozen Heart, best armor item, except for sometimes randoms is better if you're getting on there and you're popping randoms on a guy. This one also gives you more CDR though, so it tends to be better. If you need both resistances and you're diving in, Gargoyles is the best. Bonus if you are going to have a lot of HP. GA, terrible item, should only be purchased if you are trolling or if you bought Stopwatch and you just need a quick power spike. Gwynceus is pretty underrated. Not even that bad as like second item or even first on like Kog'Maw, for example, for damage. But except for that, should not really be bought on a lot of champs because a lot of champs don't need just damage. But for just damage, this is pretty good. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if maybe even Jinx could use this item, to be honest, like later on in the game, because with crit, it's not that bad. The issue is you usually don't want just damage. Horizon Focus is pretty sad right now because Shadow Flame outdamages it pretty much all the time. So if you really want the CDR, then you can go Horizon Focus, but if you want pure damage, on most champs, Shadow Flame is gonna be better. Hullbreaker, OP as fuck. You can win the game alone by going this item, as long as you split push. Yorick, Trundle, this type of champs, OP item. We saw Bwipo use it in LCS, he showcased why. Because enemy has Diana jungle, and then they have whatever the fuck they have in top lane, Yasuo. Now you're tanky versus both, and you have HP. What the fucking fuck? That's balanced or what? IE only buy third item and later, when you have full crit. Otherwise, it is terrible. And you also need to make sure you're auto-attacking. Because if you're going to be using spells, and you're not going to be critting, then this is going to be bad as well. So it gets better at like 4th item. That's why buying Bloodthirster third isn't that terrible, because it says 35% bonus crit damage, but that's only if you're critting. You're not always critting. Night's Vow, good to buy on tanks and junglers and supports if you have a Piss Smurfer on your own team. So it's like the reverse Anathemas chains. You put it on the guy that you would Anathemas if your enemy team, pretty much. Like, whoever is smurfing on your team, you can put this on and hope they carry. This item sucks cock, even though it got buffed. Completely useless, should never really be bought unless you were previously buying it. People are buying it on Victor now. Completely useless, because Void Staff, Shadow Flame, and Rabadons will outdamage it. So, it's pretty fucking piss. This item is good if enemy has HP and armor. It is also good depending what item you're comparing it to. It's good versus Collector when enemy has armor and HP. It is good versus IE when you are relying more on spells, and you're also going to be hitting the guys in the front more. But compared to IE, like, it takes less for this to beat Collector than it takes for it to beat IE. Because IE can also deal more damage to tanks sometimes. Like, if it's like a Giga tank, LDR will win. But if it's more like a bruiser, IE can often outdamage LDR. So you should test that on your champions in practice tool. Manamune, I'm not even going to talk about, right? We know when that's good. More piss item. Like, you only buy it if randomly enemy has like fed AP assassin. And you can't buy other hammer items, like Ezreal would buy this because he can't go Witsend. If you can go Witsend, probably you would want to go Witsend. Magi is OP as fuck. You can go with pretty much every game on every mage. Very cost efficient. This one, obvious case. Obvious, right? Not going to talk about. Mikhail's also gives 20% healing and shield. Obvious. This one is good in general, to be honest, though. Like I said with Seal. Seal items in general tend to be good. This one is very, like, good in general. So if you need the Grieving Wounds, this is good. The question is it worth to spend 2.5k gold? Like, for example, Tryndamere, I would rather get my Cyrilda or my IE. Nashor's OP as fuck. Good on Echo, good on Gwen. Good on AP Varus, good on any champion that can use it, pretty much. as long as you're going to be auto-attacking, obviously. Navori cost a lot of money, that's the main issue. The item is not bad, it just costs a lot. PD, the best seal item as long as you're hitting people, and that's the main issue. Because Rapid Fire is really piss when it comes to cost efficiency, but it gives you something you can't talk about when it comes to gold, range. You can't judge range. Range and movement speed is something that's hard to judge. So if you need Rapid Fire to be able to hit the enemy team, if it's unrealistic that you're going to give you free PD hits, then you go Rapid Fire. If you're putting yourself in a dangerous range by going this, then you should have went Rapid Fire. If your team comp wants to poke and back off, then you go Rapid Fire. Doesn't matter if this one is better, because PD is always better in cost efficiency. But that doesn't mean anything if you can't hit people, right? Rabadons, good second, third, fourth, fifth item. All depends on what you're planning on buying and your champion. Randuin's is like confusing with Frozen Heart. So Randuin's is good because it gives you HP. It's bad because it gives you less ability haste than Frozen Heart. And it's bad because the basic damage is reduced by 5 here instead of 7 from Frozen Heart. Also, it costs more. So Frozen Heart is cheaper and reduces more basic damage. It has more basic damage reduction. And it has attack speed slow, which means maybe they skip 2 or 3 auto attacks, right? What makes Randuin's not that bad is when you're diving in onto a champion and you're just popping it on top of him to quickly 1v1 him. Like if you're more of a burst champ that wants to dive in and one-shot the guy. Maybe like Renekton, for example. But if you're going to stick on him for longer, Frozen Heart will outvalue it. Ravenous Hydra, I mean, it's obvious, right? Like, look at the stats. If you need these stats, you go it, because there's no other item that will give you these stats. Ezreal loves this item. Redemption, good versus poke comps. Even if you're playing a tank, you could even go it. Hurricane's good if you're hitting a lot of melees, but then again, PD is also good then. So, I think certain champs like Jinx could use this maybe for her rockets, if you have some kind of synergy. Kog'Maw, right? Rylus is buffed. Same champs would buy it nowadays too. It's just cheap, and if your champion utilizes it well, you should go it. If you go Leandris, it's obviously a bonus because of the synergy. We talked about Seraphs. Serpent's Fang, obvious case, right? It used to be always good. Now it's like so nerfed that it's only good if they have shields. Cyrilda is always good because, so second item is only good if they have armor, like purchased armor. Third and fourth and fifth is always good because by that time base armor is just so strong. Shadow Flame, good if they don't buy MR. If they buy MR, Void Stuff is better. This one is just QSS item, right? So Spirit Visage is good on ADCs as well. On Vayne, for example, can be good if you're gonna get like shielded and heal a lot. So yeah, on Bruisers, pretty much always good, like Renekton and stuff. You're gonna be using this a lot. If you don't have healing, again, Force of Nature is gonna be better. Stuff of Flowing Water, if you're playing support and your mages are doing well, right? Sterox is good for teamfights, bad for 1v1. You can compare Sterox to Hullbreaker. If you're splitting, Hullbreaker will be better for you. But if you're going to be looking to teamfight, Sterox is going to be better. Stormrazor, good on certain champions that have synergies with it, like Akshan, for example. If you don't rely on like the bonus damage and slow to catch up on the guy, it's going to be really useless. Collector, we already talked about, right? This item is mean a lot, but the build path is really, really good. So you're quite a lot stronger in early game with it compared to LDR. And if you're just gonna be like reaching their backline, like Kai'Sa diving in, then Collector is gonna be good. But if you're gonna have to hit frontline, then LDR is gonna be better. You don't upgrade into this unless you need immediate spike or you apply it easily. This one very good on a lot of champs. Sion, for example, can use this. I'm a bit sad this item never gets built, really. You become really tanky and you still deal a lot of damage. But yeah. Umbral is only a first item, really, that you just buy to cheese the map, like Pyke, for example. Because later on you'd rather buy like real lethality, like Cyrilda. This should be a good item, but it's not. And the reason why is because the champs that buy this is supports. And it's 1.1k gold, and usually a support actually needs like an item that does something. What I mean by that is like, usually you need Mikael's, right? if you don't need Mikhails, you don't need Redemption, you can buy this item, because it's not bad. By the time you get this as support, it's going to give you a lot of stats. The issue is you don't use a lot of them though. The AD, you don't use, you know? A lot of champs also don't use the ability power, like Leona. So I'd say for enchanters it's better than for melees, but I'd say be careful because investing 1.1k gold is a lot of gold. So only buy it if you don't actually need other items like Mikhails. Void Staff, as soon as they buy Amari, it's good. Warmog is good for HP. It's the best HP item you can get pretty much. And if you compare this, like if you combine this with a Gargoyles, you have a very big Gargoyle shield as well. Wits End OP, even good damage as well. Yumu's good for roaming. That's it. Like good for running around the map. It's good for map tempo. Good on champs like Kayn and Zed. Lets you roam around. Very strong item. This one is pretty piss. Sonya's, same as GA. Pretty troll item. You only buy it if you have some kind of synergy, like you're diving in and using it like Diana. Or you buy it if you already have stopwatch and you just want a spike. Or you buy it if you counter certain champions on enemy team with it, like Malphite, like Zed, these type of things. Otherwise, you're not really gonna be using this item very well. Finishing it off, I know it's been a long time, but there's so much to talk about with items. Mythic items, Crown, extremely overhyped. Look at the stats, it's terrible. You only buy this if they cannot proc it easily and you will counter them by going it. For example, Rengar or Fizz, they don't like this item. Or if you're diving into them, it can be good as well, like Kassadin. Sunderer is very good if you're looking for long sustained fights. Like, let's say you're playing Hecarim and you want to sustain fights versus like bruisers and tanks. Duskblade is terrible item, but good with his Invis thing. So if you think you can one-shot anyways, then you go this item. So let's say you're playing Zed versus a lot of squishies, you can go this. But if you need extra damage, this is not that good, and Eclipse is going to do better, and also scale better, because of the percentage pen from Mythic. So we already talked about Eclipse, when to go that, right? It also gives you sustain. So for laners, it's also going to be an added bonus, for example, for MF, right? That you get the sustain. Event Shroud is good if you're playing a tanky support, and enemy team is quite tanky, so you don't need a Locket Shield. Then your team getting extra damage can be useful. Airfrost good when you have synergy with it, like Veigar. Or if enemy team is diving into you, like let's say you're playing Victor and you're getting Dove on 2, but you don't want Crown, you can go this. It's not that bad. Frostfire good if you can run people down with it. Except for that, it gets fucked by Sunfire and everything else. Like Chem Tank, much better engager than this. Sunfire, more damage than this. So this one is just good if you have like some kind of like synergy that can like run the guy down, right? Gale Force good if the passive is going to do something, because for the mythic items of ADCs, Kraken is always going to deal the most damage if you're hitting. Issue is again range, right? Sometimes you need range. Gale Force can be good for that, to get in range. Sometimes you need to avoid enemy Diana combo and stuff like that, or Gragas combo. Then you need the Gale Force. Goddrinker, quite a good lane thing, because quick wave clear, quick roams, very very nice, and easy to 1v2 with when you have it, especially if you have it before they get their mythic. So typically versus bruisers you're gonna go this. If you're versus more ranged champs, let's say you're playing Renekton, you might even want to go Prowler's Claw. Protobelt, only item you're gonna go pretty much. Night Shitster, this one. Shit Harvester. It's just worse than this. So, like, it's just worse. Like, this one just deals more damage, you know. Shieldbow good to live. So Vayne. Resolve champs. If you go Resolve secondary with Shieldbow, you are very, very tanky. Mandate, only item that's going to give you damage as a support, pretty much. As like an enchanter. So Nami uses this really well. You can go to champs like Karma. I just prefer not to, because if I am playing Karma, I would rather have Locket to prevent getting one-shotted by Yasuo Diana, or having Moonstone for my Olaf and stuff like that. Or Shurelias to engage. But Nami wants to snowball and fight and end the game, so she can use this well. I think Lux can use this well too. The only issue is that the build path is pretty terrible for lane. Kraken if you can auto-attack. Leandris if enemies buying HP or you're constantly proccing it. Like Heimerdinger and Malzahar, pretty much always good because they can always proc this. And if you go Rylai's and Demonic Embrace, then it's even a bonus with this, obviously. Lockout's good when enemy is gonna bomb you, like completely one-shot 100 to 0. Luden's good if enemy does not have HP and you want damage, because if they have HP, you go this. People keep talking about, if enemy has MR, then you should not go Ludens, but that's not true. If enemy has MR but they don't have HP, Ludens will still outdamage Liandry's. So you go Ludens when they have no HP, and you want to one-shot. If they're gonna go HP, then Liandry's is probably gonna do more damage. Moonstone, good with bruisers on your team. Good when fights are gonna be long. This one, like I said, it's just not good. Like, seriously, like there is no champion I can think of that should go this. Diana does not want to go it. Rumble does not want to go it. Nidalee does not want to do it. This item is good, but also quite bad. Because you only want it if you can, like, reach them with the dash. Like, Renekton could want it versus ranged champs, because Duskblade Renekton is a bit troll, right? But you see the build path is same to Duskblade. That's why you'll see on Zed, you just go Duskblade. You don't go this. Because, like, it gives a little bit more lethality later, but let's say you're 4th item, right? Having, like, 15 extra lethality does not really change anything. Riftmaker is good if you're going to stick on people and fight them, like Gwen. Shrella is good for engage. Strikebreaker, good on Goredrinker champions that needs to stick on people, like if you're versus a more like dashing champion, like maybe like Riven or Gwen and stuff like that. It could be good. But losing the dash kind of made it lose value. Sunfire, only tank item that actually deals damage. I prefer it on Malphite, because you can actually carry with it. And ending it off, we have Triforce, we already explained Chemtank. Triforce is good on Hecarim, for example, when you still want Sheen, but you want to one-shot more. Because this one is more like, you get tankier because of the sustain and stuff. But this one, if you don't feel like you need tankiness, when you're 1v1ing people, you're going to deal more damage with this. And also it's going to clear the jungle faster. And you're going to just be faster overall. And that's it for items. You know, like, there is a lot to talk about in items. And there's for sure some situations that maybe I didn't mention, because there is just too much about items. But I think this video at least covers all of them. Like, most at least. Do you guys have any questions? All right. Then I'll stop the recording here and